The second section of the module focuses on meso-environmental changes. So here we're looking at changes that affect an organisation's immediate environment, like changes in the nature of competition or the supply chain, or changes in the organisation's consumers' behaviour. They are the three main areas that need to be covered in this section of the unit. And again, just like with the macro-environmental challenges, I've given some examples in the tutor resources, but as a tutor, you're free to talk about your own emerging trends under the headings of changes in consumer behaviour, changes in the supply chain, and changes in the nature or structure of competition. The example that I give in the tutor resources about changes in consumer behaviour relates to online shopping. So we've seen a growth in online shopping that's been fueled by a variety of factors, some of them macro-environmental, and some of them are changes in consumer behaviour, that consumers wish to purchase digital formats of physical products. It's more convenient for some consumers to have 8,000 songs on their iPod than it is to have 2,000 CDs in their living room. It's also more convenient for many consumers to use the internet to purchase comparison goods, because with many comparison shopping sites, they can easily compare all the features of a product and the price in one go, rather than traipsing around the shops and doing it. It might be interesting to look at changes in competition and the supply chain together, because we see increasingly a lot of firms collaborating and forming strategic alliances. So what was your competitor last week may well be your collaborator this week. In terms of resources to support this unit, I've given a wide range of journal articles and web resources, and there's also the recommended reading by Tapscott and Williams, which is the book about Wikonomics. And I would recommend that you as a tutor read this book. I'm sure you always read the recommended reading books, but if there's one you're going to read, it should be this one, because it's very, very interesting, and it's looking at how mass collaboration across different industries and across organisations in industries and between consumers and suppliers is really changing the nature of production in a lot of sectors like research and development and medicine and even fashion and pop music. The third section in the module focuses on the microenvironment, that is, emerging changes and themes within organisations and within marketers themselves. In this section of the module, it's important that the students start to apply some of the other emerging themes to their own organisation or an organisation that they're familiar with, and also start thinking about their own skills needs in the future. And I think that's important here, because if we're looking at growing the sort of strategic marketing managers of the future through this programme, it's likely that the students in your class aren't necessarily going to stay in the sector that they're in at the moment. So they need to build the skills and confidence to take their knowledge of marketing out into other sectors. In this part of the module, it's important that students get an introduction to changes in current thinking in marketing theory and practice. And again, I've given some pointers as to things you might talk about, such as social marketing and green marketing and digital marketing. But once again, you're free to focus on things that you as an individual might be interested in terms of your own research interests and teaching interests, and also colleagues that you work with. I think the more people that students are influenced by at this point in the course, the better. So do try and source guest speakers, and do try and get a range of materials so that students can see marketing from a variety of different perspectives. And the other thing to think about at this part of the module is to help students build the skills they need to access data themselves, so that they can start to be more confident really thinking about what's going to happen in the future and predicting change. So do introduce them to locally accessible sources of data and intelligence. We certainly have resources that are available through the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and they're signposted in the tutor resource pack, but you may well have other sources of data in your own institution or within your own sort of sphere of interest that you think would be useful to students, and I'd encourage you to make sure that your students know about those. Again, if you're affiliated with an a higher education institution, then you probably have a library manager or library services department, and they may well have guides that talk about all the data that's available within the library and other information systems that your students can access locally. Once again, one of the skills I think that's important to build here is one of sort of creativity and thinking about the future in an unstructured way. We have, I'm sure, or your students will have studied in the past methods of predicting the future like time series analysis and so on. But really here, what we're looking at is getting a variety of data in from a variety of sources, and those sort of rational plan techniques don't really help. So, you need to get some very high-level blue sky debates going about just what is the future, and not the future in the next 12 months, but what's going to happen to the automotive industry in the next, say, 20, 25 years. This will ensure that they start thinking then more creatively and less sort of in terms of what the things that they know already. Once again, I've signposted a range of journal articles and other web resources, but I think there's great opportunity in this section of the module to give some resources that should be of practical benefit to the organisations that they're in at the moment. So, for instance, the web resources I've recommended for digital marketing are all focused around really practical, very low budget marketing techniques and activities that they could start adopting today if they wanted to. Things about how to develop a company blog, for instance, that your customers will actually want to read. There's two other important resources for this section of the module. They're agenda papers that have been written by the Chartered Institute of Marketing. One's entitled Tomorrow's World and gives an overview of what's likely to happen to marketing in the future. And the other one's entitled Triple Bottom Line, and it looks at corporate social responsibility and the way of doing business in a more sort of socially acceptable manner, thinking about social objectives as well as economic objectives, and also, of course, being considerate of the environment. There's a mixture of seminar activities. Between them, they cover the content of this section. For instance, one of the activities asks students to apply the concept of the triple bottom line to their own organisation. And another activity encourages students to think about using digital marketing techniques in quite an unusual business context, and that's an organic bot scheme.